everybody. Welcome to Sipping Tea with Sabrina. In a second, we'll be sharing the tea on the three people you'll meet at Shawshank, creating a winning mindset. But if you've never met me before, my name is Sabrina Walker Hernandez. I am known as the Dream Team Architect, and I'm so very happy to be here with you. I am the president and the CEO of Building Better Boards. I specialize in building elite leadership teams for corporate and nonprofit boards and CEOs, turning high level potential into extraordinary performance. If you're looking to transform your board or need support working with your board or team, you come to the right place. Again, I'm Sabrina Walker Hernandez, facilitator for corporate and nonprofit organizations, international keynote speaker, and your go to expert in strategic leadership and governance excellence. I've helped drive 14 million in revenue, and that was just one project while building organizational resilience. And I'm here to share the insights and strategies that can make a real difference for you and your organization. So we're going to get started, and we're going to have with us today Rob, and this conversation is going to be critical for you if you want to understand. I love his topic, the three people you meet at Shawshank, creating a winning mindset. Whether you are a nonprofit or mission driven company or an association, that is why we have with us today Rob. So, Rob, welcome to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this opportunity. I know it's been a while since you and I last spoke, but yes, I have been looking forward to this conversation.
Good. And why don't you share a little bit about yourself with the people as we get into this? I really want them to understand who you are. I love the title, by the way. Kind of give us a peek into that as well as you're telling the people who you are.
Yeah, well, who am I? I'm a man who seeks purpose in life, who seeks to be a difference maker. I like to say a warrior. I want to be that, have that warrior, embrace that warrior mindset in everything I do. And that's powerful to me because I think that for many men, they've allowed that warrior spirit that exists within all men to just kind of be squelched for whatever reason. They put too many expectations on themselves of what others expect out of them, and they kind of let that warrior spirit die. I went through the process myself of trying to reignite that warrior spirit in myself. Escaping what I call that 9 to 5 drudgery. And once I embraced that warrior spirit and who I was and what I wanted to accomplish, all bets were off. I live it each and every day now, and I do it with intention. And I do it with a purpose.
Perfect, Rob. So I'm so excited to have you here, and I promised a certain amount of time. So let's get into these questions. But I'm going to ask you something. Tell me about
Yes.
the three people you meet at Shawshank because you didn't really, when you told me that title, right? You kind of
Yeah.
explained it to me. So explain the concept of the three people you meet at Shawshank and how did these
Well,
personalities show up in teams?
yeah, the concept, it comes obviously from the movie Shawshank Redemption, and many critics would argue that's one of the greatest movies ever made. I'm a person who loves story. I absolutely love story. I love story when it's theatrically played out. And this is a story that just kind of keeps you on your edge. And it's just not the people that you see in this movie. It's the people you see in life. It's the people you see in your work environment. It's people you see when you're out walking your dog or you go to the grocery, you go to your church. I believe that all people fall into one of three categories. And I very much I love numbers. There's just something about numbers. It's to me, I'm a student of the Bible, and if you really read the Bible and you study the Bible, numbers are very important, and the number three is a very important number. And to me, people fall into one of these three categories, and that's kind of where I came up with this idea. And watching this movie, and I've watched it multiple times. And every time I watch it, I gain a little bit more nugget out of it. I gain something else about it, and that's what makes it a great story. And so that's where I came up with this idea. Three people you meet at Shawshank.
Well, that is good. So how do these personalities show up on teams?
Well, let's start with the first one that we Brooks Hatton. And if you've never seen the movie, I'm sorry, I'm going to do some spoiler alerts here, but it's a 40-year-old movie. You should have seen it by now. That's all I'll say. So, who was Brooks Hatton? Brooks Hatton is somebody who went into the institution at a young age. Brooks Hatton is somebody that has been institutionalized his entire life, and that's all he knows. He knows nothing else. He knows nothing else beyond those walls. I mean, he's actually a decent guy, a decent man, a good man inside those walls. People respect him. They understand who he is. They treat him with dignity. But for Brooks, he sees nothing else beyond those walls. That's who he is. He's created this identity of himself. He can never go beyond that which holds him back. He can never go beyond that which he can only see with the physical aspect of what he can see. And there's a day that comes when
Hmm.
served his time. His time's up.
Right.
It's up, and he's about ready to get parole. And he is so fearful of having to leave those walls, leave
Yep.
behind those walls. He's so fearful that what's he do? He hatches a plan that I'm going to commit another crime so they won't let me out. He grabs one of his best friends and holds a knife to his throat, threatening to kill this man because he can't go beyond those walls. He's allowed fear to control him. He has no courage. He has no courage at all. He can't see past that fear. And so, after an intense conversation, he's finally talked out of it. He drops the
Right.
knife and he weeps. He doesn't know what to do. Next scene, we see him walking out of those doors, and he's completely lost. He's just lost. He doesn't know what's going on in his life, and he ends up living in a halfway house.
Yep.
Doesn't know what to do. He's working. He's working a job that at the grocery store, but he's just kind of going through the motions of life. And we see those people every day. We see those people. I like to say I'm a corporate survivor. During my time in corporate, I saw so many of those people. They're just going through the motions. They can't see anything beyond that corporate existence that they have, even though they hate it.
Right.
They're so fearful of stepping away. They've allowed fear to control them. They don't lack the courage. And some people confuse courage is just getting rid of all fear. No, 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 that's not it.
Yeah.
Courage is not getting rid of fear. Courage is allowing fear to never control you, to not let fear control you.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like doing it anyway. Like the fear is there, but you do it
doing it
anyway.
anyways. Just
Hmm.
doing it anyways. You have fear. I'm a bit of an amateur military historian, and I've really studied a lot about these men in battle. And every one of them says, "Man, yes, we were fearful every time we went in there, but we found courage to do what we know what needed to be done." And that's what a lot of these people lack. They lack the courage to understand what it is they need to do. So what happens to Brooks? He can't get past that moment of fear. He can never move past that. He hangs on to the past, that false identity he's created around behind those walls. Eventually, he hangs himself. He takes
Yeah.
his own life. But before he does that, he carves in the beam that he hangs himself up. Brooks was here as a way to kind of leave a memory that he was in this life at one point. He was here. And we all have that opportunity to leave a mark in this life. I call it our dash, because
Right.
you go to a cemetery and you look at a headstone. What do you see?
Mhm.
You see the date someone was born, the date someone was died, and it's separated by a dash.
Yeah.
And that dash represents so much about somebody.
Yeah.
And I could become a multimillionaire if I could invent an app that someone could go to a cemetery and put on that dash and decipher somebody's life. Just think about the
Yeah.
possibilities. If you could understand what that dash was. But every day we have the opportunity to live our dash.
Yes. And for the
We create it.
audience, so we got Brooke, and then we're going to get into the other three.
Yeah.
But I want for the audience, because you said something that really resonate, and a lot of times, especially with Brooke, it really is about mindset.
Mhm.
And can you share with us why mindset is such a critical factor for leaders, nonprofit leaders, corporate, any type of leaders, especially when they're facing like limited resources or limited knowledge, or they're
Yeah.
approaching burnout? Why is it so critical?
Well, mindset moves you past. Okay, you said limited resources, and we've
Hmm.
all experienced that. That we have these big, grandiose plans and ideas of what we want to do, but we're on a tight budget.
Right.
Uh, the mindset allows you to think outside that box, not be so siloed, have the blinders on, but think outside the box. That I have this limited resource, what can I do with it? I go back to the saying. I mean, it's attributed to Henry Ford, but I've also heard it's attributed to Confucius. If you think you can or you can't, you're right.
You're
And
right.
it all comes down to what you believe about yourself, what you believe about what you can accomplish, and what that mindset causes us to do. It causes us to take action. We may have, there's no guarantee that when we embark on something that we're going to do it right. But the one guarantee is that if you do nothing, nothing's going to happen.
Amen. If you do nothing, nothing is going to happen. So you talked about Brooke, you talk about, fear and doing it despite. We all have limited resources. I hear all those things. But when you're operating under high pressure conditions, what strategies can leaders use to foster resilience with themselves or
Yeah.
with their teams?
Yeah. The high pressure of a leader, that's very true. And what's most important for a leader to do, the number one thing that a leader really needs to understand is when and how to delegate their authority, to take off some of that stress. Because as a leader, you want to focus on your 20%. You want to focus on that 20% of things that's really going to move the team forward for that vision you've created. And as a leader, you have to have that solid vision because you're leading your team somewhere. And as a leader, you might as well make it the destination you want to go.
Right.
And that's what that vision is important. And when you're delegating your authority and you're trusting people in your command under you to get the job done, it allows you to maintain your focus on those 20%. And then, when you focus on that 20%, it creates an exponential effect. It allows you to 10x your abilities because you are focusing on specifically what the tasks that need to be done. We all have those things within our team that need
Hmm.
done. And you've got to assign the right task to the right person. And if one person's trying to do it all, then the team is never going to succeed. The team is never going to move forward. An
Right.
effective team puts everybody in the right position to do what serves the team best.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. It's not here, but I brought up something. I'm working with someone and they have a hard time delegating. What's your thought around that? In my looking out, looking in, sometimes I think that people perceive that delegation is a weakness
Mm-mm.
and or it may be a control issue
Yeah,
on their part. What are your thoughts
yeah.
around that?
Yeah, a leader that can't delegate, they're a micromanager. And
Hmm.
we've all worked with micromanagers. And I don't know about you, I cannot stand to work with a
Yeah,
micromanager
it's
because
hard.
the thing that happens with a micromanager is they don't trust anybody on the team.
Hmm.
And trust is so valuable. When you delegate something to one of your team members, what you're telling him is, I trust you. I trust you're going to get this done. I'm going to verify, but I trust you can handle this situation. And it empowers that team member to take action. It allows them to hone their own leadership skills because
Right.
think about it, we're all leaders in some way. Even when you're even a leader has to follow somebody, but we're all leaders in some way.
Right.
And as a leader, if nothing else, you're leading yourself.
Yeah.
But as a leader, you got to understand what you can accomplish, how you can challenge yourself. And when you delegate something to a team member, maybe they haven't necessarily done that before, but you're
Hmm.
challenging them. The
Right.
greatest thing you can do for somebody you lead is to challenge them to be more. And they begin to understand what they can accomplish. And when you have an entire team around you of leaders that are being challenged, that team that you're leading can do exponential things.
Yeah. That's such wonderful advice. And you said two things, and I want people to hear it. You delegate, but you trust and verify. That's one.
Yeah,
And my mentor used to say, inspect what you expect. So
yeah,
I wanted to make
yeah.
sure that
Yeah,
that
and yeah, it set the expectations out very clear. If you're delegating to somebody, just don't cut them loose. Give them the very clear expectations of how what you're giving to them applies to the mission of the team.
yeah.
Set those parameters for them. put them on the path, put the guardrails there. Guardrails are there for a reason. We can go anywhere in between the guardrails, but if
Yes.
you're butting up against a guardrail, then maybe it's time to, go back to the right a little bit. Or if we're all the way to the right and you're in the guardrail, maybe it's time to get back to the left a little bit.
Yeah.
But anywhere
Yeah.
in between those guardrails, you're fine. But
Yeah.
that's where you give them those guardrails of where they want. And the other thing that's really important is create those little milestones for them as well. If you've got this big goal that you've set before them, kind of create the little milestones along the way, because it gives them a sense of accomplishment. It gives
Right.
them a sense that, hey, I'm getting the job done. I'm going to start achieving some victory here.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of guardrails and milestones, how can understanding your team dynamics help leaders like navigate conflict or difficult conversations more effectively? What if someone is bumping up against the guardrail, or you know, maybe not bumping up against the guardrail, but they hadn't hit a milestone? How do you have
Yeah.
those difficult conversations effectively,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I mean, I
still
think
keep the
as,
team?
as a leader, you need to be prepared to have those difficult conversations
Yeah,
because you've set the expectations there. You place that trust in that individual. And if they're not meeting the expectations, you got to let them know. You owe it to them. You owe it to them as your leader, as their leader, to let them know that they maybe need to adjust. And if you can't have those difficult conversations with a team member, then you're probably not an effective leader.
right,
And it's not. And I think the first conversation that you have is just maybe a course correction.
right.
Just give them just lay the expectations out there. This is what we talked about. This is what I need to. But if it continues, then if it's a pattern, then you know what needs to be done, and you need to make that decision. The sooner you make it, the more effective the team will become. Because when other team members see you allowing one team member to just kind of flail around and you're
Yeah.
not doing anything about it, it sends a message across the team.
I'm going to repeat something. The sooner you make the decision, the better it is for the team. And
Mhm.
what you did not say, but said, is everybody is watching you as a leader. And so how you
Absolutely.
respond matters.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
that's critical. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the broadcast. And we're currently talking about the three people you meet at Shawshank, creating a winning mindset. Now, we talked about Brooke. You ain't
Hmm.
talked about the two other type of people yet, Rob.
Yes, we
So you
haven't.
want to introduce one of those?
Yeah, we will. We're going to introduce Ellis Boyd Redding, also known as Red in the movie. So Red's an interesting man. He has a lot of respect within the yard. He has a lot of respect within the prison. But he will also say, "Yeah, I'm the only guilty man here in Shawshank." He admits to his crimes. He understands that what he did, he needs punished for, and he accepts that. And there's something else about Red that he makes a comment that hope is a dangerous thing. Hope is a
Mhm.
dangerous thing to have here in Shawshank. And why is that? Because Red's gone before the parole board multiple times, and his parole has always been denied. But Red also knows he wants something more out of life. He understands that yes, I'm behind these walls. I'm receiving the punishment that I deserve. But he knows he's more than just this man who's stuck behind the walls. He understands that um, he has more to offer.
Right.
Well, finally, that day arrives when Red goes before the parole board again. He goes in there thinking the previous meetings he's had, he's got a lot of hope that he's going to get out. This one, he's just going through the motions. But they ask him a very direct question. Have you learned your lesson? And he opens his heart up. He
Mm-hmm.
says, absolutely. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what I've done, that I regretted the actions that I took when I was in my 20s, that I regretted what's put me here. And he confesses and that act of confession takes the weight off his shoulders, just kind of releases everything. He's finally come clear about who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And that confession that he does in that moment so impresses the parole board, they grant his parole. He's fully confessed. Yes, he confessed that he's a guilty man, but he hasn't fully gone through the entire act of confession.
And
So what
so,
happens to Red? Yeah. So what happens to Red when he gets released? He actually gets the same job that Brooks had as a
Mm-hmm.
bagger in the grocery store. He actually is in the same room that Red took his life in the halfway house. And he's just kind of going through the motions a little bit, but he knows that, there's something more he wants out of life, and he just doesn't know what it is. He needs for somebody to kind of send him a signal. He's trying to create his own signals too. And there's a scene in this as he's trying to go through this where he stops by a pawn shop and he's just kind of looking in the window at a gun and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of staring at that. And you're wondering, all right, what's the first time you see it, you're wondering, what's he going to do next here? What's he going to do next? But a letter comes to him in the mail and tells him, hey, this is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Something has been prepared in advance for you. This is what you need to do. And well, what's the value of getting that? What does Red do with that? He takes action. He takes the action. He takes that step. He doesn't wait. He acts now.
Mm-hmm.
He does that what I call imperfect action. He doesn't know where this is leading him. He just does it. He does as he was told. And we all have those people in our life, mentors, coaches, pastors, wherever you want to do that. They will give us a message. But do you take action on what they've said?
Right.
They've gone before you. They have some wisdom. They have some knowledge. They see you and they see what you can become. And they provide that, guidance to you. I don't call it unsolicited advice. They see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself.
Right.
So think about the times that we've received that, because I can think there's many times I've
Yes.
received that. Some of them I took action on, and some of them I just kind of did nothing about it.
Right.
And sometimes some of those things that I did nothing about, I think about, and I go back, and I don't regret not taking the action, but I ask myself, if I'd have done it then, how different would my life be now?
Right. Let me ask you a question, and because you've unpacked a lot with Red. You talked about mindset. You talked about him going before the parole board, and him having the ability to inspire them to make a decision um, based on his story. So,
Mhm.
what role does mindset play when you're trying to inspire volunteers or staff or your team, especially at a time of uncertainty or
Yeah.
change?
Oops. Let's go back to that word, the confession. And as a leader, I think you have to acknowledge, you got to be a little vulnerable, that
Mm-hmm.
you have to confess to your team, I don't have all the answers. And there's nothing wrong with, a team member coming. I've seen leaders do this, and I'm going to start here, where somebody will ask them a question and they don't know the answer, and they
Right.
just kind of give them some answer that has nothing to do. But there's nothing wrong if somebody you're leading comes up to you with a question and you don't know the answer. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know.
I don't know.
Can I get back to you with that?
Yes.
And then you find the answer. That gives
Yes.
more that when people see that, they will respect you so much more, because you've opened that little bit of that vulnerability to understand, I don't have all the answers. You're on this team. You're on this team for a reason. Maybe you have the answers. Maybe you have the answers I don't. I put you on this team for a reason, that maybe you've experienced something at another situation that I haven't. And being vulnerable, it can become a superpower, because it tells your team members that they have the opportunity to speak up,
Right.
that you're not an authoritative dictator. You're somebody who wants their input. You want their input. You hunger for that input to help you to understand what it is the team can accomplish.
Right. That's so good. And so I'm looking at Brooks and I'm looking at Red, and I'm like, they both struggled, right, with their own
Mhm.
thoughts and their own processes, with their own self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Am I going to be able to function in this world?
Yeah.
Looking at where they are in their life and what marks are they leaving. But a lot of leaders struggle with
Mhm.
that. They struggle with imposter syndrome or self-doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
what advice do you have for overcoming these, what I call limiting beliefs?
Yeah, that imposter syndrome and self-doubts. I have talked to some men that have been very successful,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean incredibly successful in with what they've accomplished. And I've had those conversations about them or with them. And they have said the same thing. Yeah, I feel like an imposter at times. And it's something that never leaves you. I don't think it ever leaves you because um, I think it's always going to be there because you always have a little bit of that self doubt. But how do you conquer that self doubt?
Right.
Just step into it, take the action.
Right.
Because, to me, overthinking is the enemy of action. You can sit there and think and think and think and think and think, and guess what? You've never done a darn thing. You haven't taken a step. You haven't taken a step forward.
Yeah.
And
You're
in the
immobilized.
process, yeah, in the process of going on this journey, there's going to be some days where maybe the step is just minuscule, but you took a step, you moved forward a little bit. And if you keep moving forward, eventually you're going to have exponential steps,
Yeah.
and those
Yeah.
steps are going to get bigger and bigger and accomplish more. So if you have the self-doubt, you know what? Here's what I do. I just kind of laugh at it. I'm like, huh, isn't that a cute idea? Isn't that a cute thought that I just had right now? You know what? I don't want to listen to you today. I don't have time for you today. Talk to the hand.
Exactly. You know that automatic, I call them ants, the automatic negative thoughts that come in. It's not like they're not there. You just look at them, examine them, and
Yeah,
put them out of the way.
yeah.
One of the things that I do, Rob, and I don't know about you, but I also have a theme song that kind of plays in my head.
I
it,
like that.
it
Yeah,
depends on what
when I
what's in, but I do have a theme song
yeah,
sometimes that plays in my
I
head.
do. Yeah, I mean, music. I love music. Music has played such an integral part in my life. I'm not a musician by any means. I've only ever learned how to play one instrument in my life, and that was the accordion. I play a mean cowbell, I will say that, but I do love music. And when I want to get really ready for something, I'll just pop on some of my favorite songs, and it just kind of creates that headspace, gets me in that mindset of what I want to do. And
Right.
yeah, there's something powerful about music.
Yeah. When you said cowbell, okay. When you said cowbell, you know what image came in my head?
What's that?
The SNL skit with Will
Oh
Ferrell.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
I can see that happening with the cowbell. So I have a couple of more questions here,
Sure.
and it really is around creating. You said this early on, creating what you want, right? And so we
Mhm.
all. My assumption is leaders really want a culture of positivity. So if that is what you
Yeah,
want, how can
yeah.
they intentionally create a culture of positivity,
Mhm.
even when resources are stretched thin, or the challenges may seem overwhelming? We all have those things to face. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, just think big. When to me, I hear too many people say, "I need this to happen." Well,
Mm-hmm.
need is limited thinking. Think what you want to happen. Want to me is such a different word, and there's nothing wrong with focus on what you want. And if you have limited resources, just remember what it is you want. I say, remember your future. And that future is that vision you've casted for the organization, that vision you've casted for the team. Remember what it is you want out of that, because there's no guarantee you're going to get to that destination tomorrow, but you're going to get there eventually if you keep trying, you keep plugging away. And with limited resources, you've got to think outside the box. I love nonprofits. I've actually led a nonprofit at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and that nonprofit I led, we were building freshwater wells in third world countries, and it was, yeah, we had literally no resources on that. But
Exactly.
you know what? We were able to build. I think that by the final count, we built over 30 freshwater wells in third world villages. And how do we do that? Man, we just focused on what we had at our available to us,
Right.
and we just took action with it. We made it fun. Make it fun.
Yeah.
Challenge people with what it is you want to accomplish. Get them to buy into the dream that you have. That
Mm-hmm.
buying into the dream is valuable. And explain to them why this is such a valuable dream. Because I think there's many nonprofits that have great missions, and you've got to remember what that dream is, that those people you're wanting to serve with
Yes.
that dream. So
Yes.
remember that at all times.
Yes. You said something. I'm gonna unpack a couple of things. You said dream big. I
Mhm.
think that people hear that as words, but it really is something that you have to do. You have to
Yeah.
dream big. Something else you said is share the vision.
Hmm.
People have great missions, just like you said, but if you're not out there telling people this is the dream and this is the dream
Hmm.
that's big and just talking about it, people will get excited just from hearing what that dream is, and they might not
Yeah.
be able to help you execute it at that moment, but it will be in their mind, so that when they're
Yeah.
able
Absolutely.
to help you execute it, then they can step forth and say, I know this person is doing this. I think that was one of the biggest things for me when we went
Hmm.
for our capital campaign and tried,
Yeah.
$12 million in the third poorest county in the United States. It was telling people about the dream. Now, some people
Yeah.
were like, "You're crazy. It's never going to happen. It's never happened before. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen." But
Yeah.
you put it out there, right? And you believe
Put
it
it
that
out
it's a
there.
dream.
Yeah, and you're always going to have dream killers out there, and just don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. And I believe that if your dreams don't scare you, make them bigger. Just
Yeah,
make them so big that it just scares you each and every day. That you see yourself stepping into this space. Um, I call it fame.
yeah.
Fame. You're becoming famous with what you want to do with this dream, and see yourself in that space. You've accomplished it. You create that vision around it, everything about it. What you'll be wearing, uh, where you'll be standing when you accomplish this dream. Hey, what you'll be eating for dinner that night, what clothes you'll be wearing, who you'll be celebrating with. Create all that around it, because then it makes it tangible. It makes it real to you.
You are a person after my own heart. This is why I asked you to come on this stage. I remember now. But we deal with so many people that they can't dream as big
Right.
as you and I.
Mhm.
We practice in this. So for those people who are out there and want like an actionable step, if they want to just start building a winning mindset for their team, what's one small but impactful step that they can take like immediately?
You know what? Journaling. Journaling is so powerful. I've got my journal sitting right here, right here. I'm kind of writing in it this morning, because there's something powerful about, opening this book and taking a pen and writing it to paper. And yes, do I do stuff online and virtual documents, yes, but I get so much more out of just physically writing it out. Now, my handwriting's not the greatest. It can be a little chicken scratchage, but I get so much more out of that. Sometimes I start writing and I can't keep up with the words that are coming. I'm just going so fast that the words are coming faster than I can write. I would journal, and get in the habit of journaling. And when you get in the habit of journaling, this is what I've done: date
Mhm.
everything, save those journals, and go back periodically and reread them. I've got journals sitting on my
I do
bookshelf from the last
too.
25 years. And every now and then I'll do this, 2 or 3 times a year. I'll just grab one off the shelf and I'll open it just to a page, and it's dated. And all right, I look at the date. All right, these were the thoughts that I had on this date. And you'll start to see a symmetry with what it is you're wanting to do, because a lot of those thoughts are the same things I'm thinking today. I'm able to see, okay, I had this thought 15 years ago, and this is where I'm at today. You see your personal growth. That's what's powerful about the art of journaling.
Yeah, Rob, I'm sitting here and I'm laughing because I sat in the same office space for over 10 years and I kept my journals
Mhm.
from work. And I remember when I moved out of space, I was like, man, I should really get rid of these. But then I started reading them. I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah, no,
And so I have
don't get rid of them.
shelf of that too. I don't know if you've had this experience. You go back and you start reading, and you're like, I don't understand that word. Because like you said, you get really into the thoughts and you started going
Yeah.
real fast.
I'm
Like,
same way.
what was that word? But it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you get the context
Here's
or
another reason you should never get rid of your journals. That's your book.
yeah,
I mean, we all have to say, I want to write a book. And, it's not really a vanity project. A book is just an act of love that you want to leave. your legacy, leave your message for when you're no longer in this life. Because spoiler alert, we're all going to leave this life at some point.
Yes.
So, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to remember you? And I mean, some people I hear people, I want to write a book and make millions. Well, the people that can make millions off a book, it's 1%, if even
Yeah.
that. But I think there's something powerful about taking the time to really just sit down and create that book for you to leave behind, and for you as well. It just
Yeah.
kind of leaves that message of who you are.
I agree. I agree. I see we have a couple of people joining us. I just want to say hi to D Ochoa, who's on the stage, and a couple other people. But I got one more. This is my last one. So we met Brooks. We've met Red. Who we leaving out?
Well, we're leaving out Andy Dufresne. I think that was pretty obvious if you've seen the movie. We're leaving out Andy. So who was Andy? We first meet Andy at the beginning of this movie, where he's sitting in his trial and he is found guilty of murdering his wife. And he's questioning this. He doesn't know, did I do this or not? He doesn't remember. He just can't
Mm-hmm.
remember. But he says, "I found guilty. I guess I did. Guess I did it." So he is sent to Shawshank prison to serve his time. And while he's there, he starts gaining the respect of Red. Red kind of takes him under his wing and mentors him as a new inmate to show him, well, this is what you need to do in order to survive here. But Andy knows that I'm not this man that needs to be behind these walls. I've got so much more to offer the world. Well, finally, that day comes after struggling, trying to figure out what exactly happened, that he gets clarity that I did not commit this crime. I did not commit this crime. He's very clear on that. So
Mm-hmm.
what's Andy do? He doesn't wait to be paroled. He decides, I'm going to make my break. I'm getting out of here. And it just doesn't happen in an instant. It takes him time. It takes him time. And each and every day, he's focused on getting out. He's focused on, getting beyond these walls. He does something each and every day to get behind those, get on the other side of those walls. And finally, that night happens when everything comes into motion. He makes his move. He's built a hole in the wall of a cell that he crawls through. He gets into the bowels of the prison. He finds his escape route, which is a sewage pipe. He finally breaks through, and just sewage just starts going everywhere. And here's the thing about Andy. He took that action. He understood, I got to crawl through 500 yards of shit to get out of here. He did it.
He
But a
did.
lot of people, when they'll take the action, and when they realize the hard things they have to deal with, the shit that they have to deal with in their lives to get to the other side, no, this is too much for me. And who do those people become? They become Brooks. They go back to that identity and just say, oh, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. But
Yeah.
Andy doesn't. He crawls through the most disgusting stuff he can to get to the other side, to get out from behind those walls. And that's when his life takes off. That's when he starts to understand, this is who I am. This is what I can accomplish. And he's the one who sends that message to Red, because Red helped him. Now he's ready to help Red. He tells Red what to do. He tells Red, the things I've left for you, take action with them and meet me at this point, and we will build our team. We will lead our lives in a way of intention and making the most of the life we have to live.
I could not have summed this up any better than what you just did. The three people you meet, Brooks,
Mm-hmm.
Red, and Andy. And I'm just saying, who are you, right? In this journey
Yeah.
and in this endeavor that we call a life, especially if you're running a nonprofit or a business, you pick and you decide. And
Yeah.
so with that in mind, I'm going to check and see if anybody have any questions. If you don't have any questions, one of the most common questions that I get, of course, is around, can you help me with engaging my board in fundraising? And the answer to that is always yes. And just visit my website at buildingbetterboards.com. You can check out my services there. If you're watching and rebroadcast and something just hits you and you have a aha moment, leave it in the comments and I will tag my friend Rob and he'll get back with you. Or if I can answer it, I'll be more than happy to. But if you want to get through uh, the three people you meet at Shawshank and have that in-depth look on mindset and building that winning mindset, Rob is your person and he can help you through that. Rob, I just want to thank you for being here. I think
I thank you.
uh, we again, this is a person that I met over LinkedIn, I want to say, and we had such a great conversation. And as you were speaking, I was remembering this is why this resonated with me so much because mindset is everything, and to hear that perspective on it, because sometimes we do have to go through shit and we have to
Yeah,
decide how we're going
we
to
do.
respond to it. Are we
Yeah.
going to be, Brooke? Are we going to be Red? Are we going to be Andy and leave something behind for people like Red? Or are we just going to give up? So, um, I needed to hear this morning. I'm sure there's others who needed to hear this. But how can people get in contact with you?
Yes, I'm easy to get in contact with. I'm all over social media. Best place to reach me out is on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can have a conversation. I'd love to connect. You said something very valuable there, conversations, and we did have a conversation. And be willing to have those conversations with people. I can be a bit of an introvert, but I'm always willing to have conversations. I'm just curious about people. I don't care where I meet them. I don't care if I'm standing in line at the grocery store, or I'm at church, or I'm just in a online networking meeting. I'm always curious about what makes people. I just say what makes people tick. What is it about them that makes them who they are?
Yeah, and I thank you for that. We've had some people with a lot of comments. I want to just shout them out again. I like shouting out people when I know they're here. I got Andrea, Renee, Jermaine, uh, Manta. Hey, Manta, mommy is here. So thank y'all for joining us this morning. D, we already saw you here. So thank y'all so very much. Manta says something. She says step one is vulnerability. Would you like to address that?
Yeah, I think that vulnerability comes from you as a leader understanding, hey, you don't have all the answers. You cannot do this yourself. You need people to um, come alongside with you. I'm a big football fan. I'm in a matter of fact, I'm a big Ohio State football fan, and one of the greatest coaches in Ohio State football history, Woody Hayes, he was famous for saying, "You win with people," and that's so true. You have to have the people surrounding you in order to achieve victory.
Yeah.
And that's where the vulnerability of a leader comes in, is the understanding I can't do this on my own. I can't. I don't have the bandwidth to do this on my own.
And being vulnerable and letting people in. And I want to thank you again for allowing, for saying yes to being on this stage and for being willing to come and talk to this audience. I really do appreciate it. And I can see from the comments others, appreciate it. If you had any final words, what would they be for this audience?
Hey, just find that warrior spirit that exists within you, because we all have that warrior spirit. And too often or not, we've allowed that warrior spirit to be tampered because of the expectations others have put on to us. Pursue what you want, and that warrior spirit will guide you to what you want.
Perfect. Thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself. See y'all later. Thank you, Rob, for being here. And
Thank
that is
you.
Sipping Tea with Sabrina. Bye bye, guys.